Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday morning, January 24th. We have a significant winter storm that is developing right now over the state of Texas. It'll actually produce accumulating snow across the panhandle region of Texas, and then over the next 24 to 36 hours or so, that moisture-laden storm system will push to the northeast and produce accumulating snow all along the way across parts of the Mississippi Valley, into the Midwest on Wednesday and the Ohio Valley, and ultimately the interior sections of the Mid-Atlantic region and much of the Northeast U.S. later tomorrow night will receive some accumulating snow as well. Even in some of those areas that have been virtually snow-free this winter season, such as southeastern part of Pennsylvania, I think gets in on some of the action tomorrow morning, midday, with some accumulating snow, maybe a couple of inches or so, for example, in the northern and western suburbs of D.C. Probably 3 to 6 inches a little farther to the north, Lehigh Valley, into the Poconos. But even those areas will change over to rain later on in the day. The I-95 corridor region certainly sees a changeover to rain between D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City. But again, those interior sections will get several inches of accumulating snow. Before we get to the current storm situation, I want to look ahead to next week's cold air outbreak. This is a forecast map from the ensemble run of the European model from last night at 0Z. And we're looking ahead. This is a starting period here of 7 days out. Next Tuesday, January 31st, as indicated right here. We're starting with this time frame. And first of all, notice this very large area of below normal temperatures all the way down to California and across much of the northern U.S. and Canada. Meanwhile, we've been talking about high pressure ridging in the upper part of the atmosphere over the southwestern Atlantic, southeastern part of the nation that is acting to prevent any real severe cold from moving into the southeastern part of the nation. And here we have a week from now, next Tuesday, warmer than normal conditions across much of the southeastern U.S. And this area in between right here is that battle zone region, and it will remain quite an active zone for the next 7 to 10 days or so between very cold air to the north and west and milder air to the south and east. So let's now move forward and watch what the European model ensemble model run does from last night, 0Z. Here we go into the middle part of next week. This is now next Wednesday, February 1st. That upper level ridge actually intensifies, sends some warmer air even farther to the north along the Atlantic seaboard. But look at this cold air mass here, centered in terms of relative to normal. The core of that coldest air centered over the southwestern part of Canada a week out. This is the middle part of next week. Then it starts to make the move into the eastern U.S. This is all the way out now to next Friday, a little bit beyond 10 days out now, next Friday, February 3rd, and that cold air expands into the mid-Atlantic region, into the northeast, and it certainly looks like the subsequent weekend will be quite cold indeed. This is all the way out, 300 hours now, all the way out to Sunday, February 5th. The other models, the ensemble runs of the GFS and the Canadian model, show similar solutions here with higher temperatures than normal early next week, and then that widespread Arctic air expands to the east and moves into the mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S. by the latter part of next week, and that will stick around right into the subsequent weekend, the first full weekend of the month of February. Well, a couple more maps I want to show before we get to the current weather situation. This is a snowfall map from yesterday's 18Z run of the GFS model. I just wanted to point this out. This indicates tremendous amount of snow across the I-95 corridor region, going all the way out to the end of this model run, which is 16 days or 384 hours. You see right up here, it tells you it's a forecast map going out to 384 hours, which is the maximum extent of the GFS model, and it's the 18Z model run. Now, I've mentioned this before, and I just wanted to point out again that I certainly favor the 0Z and the 12Z model runs as they have the very latest upper air data. The Radisson balloons are launched at sites around the world, generally only twice a day, and that data is fed into the 0Z and the 12Z model runs. So those two particular model runs, the 0Z and 12Z, have fresh upper air data, and upper air data is absolutely critical to the accuracy of computer forecast models. So 18Z runs, 06Z runs have stale 6 hour old Radisson data or 6 hour old upper air data. So I do not rely on those models nearly as much as I do on the 0Z and the 12Z model runs. This is again a tremendous snowfall prediction here by the 18Z GFS for a 16-day time period. So two strikes against it. First of all, going that far out is kind of a gamble. Let's say you want to stick to 240 hours or 10 days out and earlier. And using the 18Z model run, do not bank on this. If indeed a trend develops at 18Z, it should show up again at the 0Z model run. And indeed, look at what happens here from 18Z to the 0Z model run. Look at this, 1 inch of snow depicted here just to the south and west of DC, whereas in that just 6 hour prior model run, 30 inches of snow. So don't get excited about any 18Z snowfall maps unless they're confirmed with subsequent model runs at 0Z, for example, or if you're looking at a 6Z model run, same thing. Wait till the 12Z model run confirms any kind of a trend, but just a tremendous difference here. And basically, throw this one out, and we'll see what happens here in subsequent model runs. Okay, getting back to the current storm situation. This is from the 0Z GFS total snowfall map. Amounts by Friday morning, between now and Friday morning. I think this has a pretty good handle on the situation as I expect to unfold. Low pressure developing right now over Texas. Significant snow across the panhandle of Texas, and that moisture laden storm pushes to the north and east. And as it does, it will have a swath of probably 6 to 12 inches of snow in this particular part of the nation, the middle Mississippi Valley into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. Ultimately, accumulating snow across much of the interior Mid-Atlantic region and much of the Northeast U.S. as well. And again, I mentioned up front, could be some accumulating snow in places that haven't seen any accumulating snowfall so far this winter season, such as southeastern Pennsylvania, maybe a couple of inches in some of those northern and western suburbs of D.C., maybe far northern and western suburbs of D.C. can receive a coating of snow tomorrow. But again, generally north of the Mason-Dixon line, and again, the suburbs of Philly can see a couple of inches of snow on probably later Wednesday morning into the midday hours. Well, now let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps from the 0Z GFS model run. Here we have dry conditions today in the Mid-Atlantic region, but here is the development of that storm system over Texas with accumulating snow across the Panhandle region here, and that will push to the north and east over the next 24 hours or so. We have some high pressure here sitting over southeastern part of Canada. Now, for a while, we'll anchor in a cold air mass for the northeastern part of the nation, allowing for some accumulating snow at the onset in much of this part of the nation. But here, an all-out snowstorm across parts of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, later today into the day on Wednesday. And here we go with some accumulating snow likely in the Philadelphia area and the suburbs, especially to the north and west, such as northern Bucks in Montgomery County, northwestern Chester County could see a couple of inches of snow before the changeover to rain. Less so south of the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. Maybe the far northern western suburbs of D.C. could see a snow or a wintry mix at the onset, but just for a brief period. Then a changeover to rain, and that changeover to rain will take place all the way up to New York City, even the Poconos and Lehigh Valley, where they may get 3, 4, 5 inches of snow. Even those areas will see a changeover to rain later tomorrow, and some of that rain can actually fall heavily at times later tomorrow into tomorrow night in that D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. And meanwhile, up across New England, pretty big snowstorm for Vermont, New Hampshire, much of Maine as well. But the rain pushes its way all the way up into the southern half of New York State. And then ultimately, the initial primary low kind of weakens and a secondary takes place near the New England coastline by early Thursday morning. Meanwhile, down across D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, the precipitation is over by Thursday morning, and stiff northwest winds will develop, go out a little bit farther in time, and this just continues to move on to the north and east, so that virtually all areas of the mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. are precipitation free by the time we get to Friday morning. So a good snowstorm developing today across northern Texas, and that significant snow will extend north and east all the way into the upper part of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley on Wednesday, and ultimately interior Mid-Atlantic region and Northeast U.S. get in on some of the action later tomorrow and tomorrow night. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.